Thank you for joining us today. My name is Olivia Roth, and I'm the Associate Director of Student Affairs and Recruitment for Penn Engineering Online Learning. We're so excited for today's MCIT Online Admissions Webinar. We have a couple people who will be joining in to tell you more about this program. So again, I introduced myself already, but we also have Rafia Foster, who's our admissions coordinator, and we have Brandon Krakowsky, who is one of our MCIT online instructors. So the format for today is that we're going to go through a presentation. Rafia is going to get started with giving you some basics about the MCIT online degree. And then Brandon will tell you some about his own MCIT experience, which he went through the on-campus program, but it's the same curriculum. So he can tell you some about that, some about the course that he teaches, and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. If you're joining us by phone, we don't have a mechanism for you to submit questions at this time, but we will be recording this webinar and posting it later on. And if you are on your computer, on your phone, you can ask questions through the Zoom tool called Q&A, and we have a team of folks behind the scenes who are available to answer questions for you. So maybe hold off on them for now, because you never know, we might answer your question in our presentation, but otherwise we will have some time at the end. So with that, I will pass it along to Rafia. Okay. Rafia, we can't hear you quite yet.
Computer, gotta love it.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone. It is a pleasure here to share more with you about MCIT Online Admissions. And hello to those of you who I've spoken with before, emailed a bunch of times. It's nice, this is my face. Nice to see you. So first and foremost, MCIT has been on campus at Penn for 18 years, and the MCIT Online program has just finished its first year in operation. So we're a fairly new program, but a program that's definitely been established on campus for several years. The program was specifically developed for people without a background in computer science in order to give them the tools that they need to progress in their career or develop something new. So it's a great program, and it's a gateway for a lot of people to get more involved in computer science. The knowledge that you gain in this program is the same as a computer science degree. Oftentimes people have questions about, does MCIT Online, is it the same as a CS master's program? But it's the same information and the same knowledge that you would get from any of those types of programs in any other graduate schools. The online students graduate with the same diploma as our on-campus students. You're able to come to homecoming and graduation. There's no mention of that it's online on your diploma, so it's the same exact program, or it's built to be very similar to the on-campus program as it stands right now. So with the curriculum, there are 10 courses that you need to take to graduate from the program. We have 6 core courses, which will give you the foundations and fundamentals that you'll need to be successful to have a background in computer science. We have them listed here. So there's Introduction to Software Development, Mathematical Foundations in Computer Science, Introduction to Computer Systems, Data Structure, Software Design, Computer Systems Programming, and Algorithms and Computation. So those are the core courses that kind of develop the foundation for everything that you would be learning afterwards. We also have elective courses. Right now, there's 4. There's more being developed every semester, and they focus on a wide range of skills, so machine learning, data science, AI computing systems, and as the program develops and grows, we'll eventually be adding more electives. And there's more information specifically about those elective courses online. If you go to our website, there's lots of information about the courses and what they contain. Okay, so the format of the program, a lot of people have questions about what the online format will be. Will it be, in time, or do you log on at a certain time? So there are weekly or biweekly deadlines for assignments that you might have to complete. All the lectures are on demand, so they're all pre-recorded ahead of time before they're posted on the Coursera platform. So you could be in any time zone. You can log in to listen to the lectures at any time at your convenience after work, before you go to something else. And with that, you'll have to send in your assignments based on a certain schedule. So of course you have assignments that you have to do, group projects that you have to do, but your lectures can be played at your convenience. It has a very large online community. So we use several different platforms for students to be able to engage with each other. So, you know, Slack, Piazza, and the Coursera platform itself. And you'll also be able to have sessions with our TAs through Zoom meetings and more ways for you to interact with your colleagues and other students in the program. So there are specific career services that we have and networking opportunities that we have for students. And we have someone that works specifically with students to develop opportunities. For instance, we're having a career fair, an online career fair that will be coming up soon. So there are great opportunities for that. In addition,
Okay, I'm not hearing.
I'm having a slight power outage.
Okay. We can still hear you, Rafia. Do you want me to take over for now?
Sure, just for a second. Let me check the outside.
Okay. Yeah, I think she was talking about career services, but then as well, the program is eligible for federal financial aid. So here you can see an example. This is just a sample for how one person could go through the degree program. Many of our students are mid-career working professionals, and so they'll take only 1 or 2 courses per semester. So this is an example where, you know, if you started in spring 2021 and you took two courses each semester, including the summer, then you can graduate in the following summer. And the payment for the courses is you don't pay for all 10 courses on day 1, you pay for them as you take them. So at the beginning of a semester, if you're taking 2 courses, you pay for those 2 courses then. If you were just taking 1 course, you pay for 1. And there's also the flexibility of, you know, if you wanted to take, let's say you started off on this plan, you took 2 courses, but then in the summer you didn't want to take any courses, the summer is optional, that's totally fine. And maybe in the fall you'd want to take 1, and then the next semester maybe 3. All of that is fine. It's very easy to adjust your cadence as you go through the program. Okay, so here's an example of the application process. So first, there are certain things that need to be submitted. For your transcripts, they only need to be unofficial as an applicant. If you're admitted, at that time, we do collect official transcripts, but beforehand, it's all unofficial. I will say that we need you to provide transcripts for any course that you took that was for academic credit. So if, let's say, you had some transfer credits and the grades didn't come through on your transcript from your graduating institution, we would need the additional transfer credit transcripts as well. Rafia is back.
I'm back. It's my apologies. Summertime power outages due to air conditioner overload in my neighborhood. I was hoping that this wouldn't happen. So thank you, Olivia, for taking over for a bit. So let me know where I can take over.
Sure.
So we're talking a little bit about the application details.
Yeah, that's right. So I was just talking about the transcripts and how we need all of them for every credit you took,
right.
and how they don't need to be official until you're admitted.
Right. Oftentimes people ask what type of transcripts we need. You could take a screenshot of your transcript. If it's something that's online, you could send us a PDF copy of your transcript. But definitely keep in mind, if you have transfer credits from another undergraduate institution, make sure that you include the transcript from that school, unless of course the grades and the course name and course credits are on your original transcript. If you're not able to access transcripts, one of the great things you could do is email us and let us know, and sometimes we have suggestions that we could give you if you have a question about whether or not transcripts need to be translated, et cetera. But definitely make sure that you get all of that information in by the deadline. And in addition, the early application deadline for spring 2021 is August 1st, so that's just a few days away. And if you complete your application by August 1st with all of the required application materials, you'll have a decision on September 15th, and then you'll need to let us know and deposit so you can enroll by October 15th. For those of you that need a little bit more time that might have just found out about the program, and I know that there are some of you that are still deciding whether or not you might want to apply and if this is the right program for you, you can also apply with our regular application deadline, which is October 1st, so that gives you a bit more time. And you would find out on November 2nd, and you would need to let us know about your decision if you were admitted on December 1st of this year in order to join us for the spring 2021 semester. And classes start on January 15th of 2021. For tuition and fees, one of the wonderful things I think that I really appreciate about the program is the affordability. Right now, the total tuition is $25,000 for the tuition, so that's $2,500 per course unit. And then there's fees with each course unit. So courses, you pay for them by course unit with the total tuition and total fees. So you'll see for one course, you would pay $2,630, and you pay for each course as you take it. So if you decide you want to take one course, you would just pay the fee for one course. If you want to take 3 courses a semester, you see the scale that we have there. Oftentimes people think that you pay per semester, but we know that applicants and the students are kind of navigating sometimes a bunch of different things. They might want to take one course one semester and 2 courses the next semester. So that way you can kind of figure out the affordability for you. And we're happy to be able to offer a tuition at a price point that's accessible for lots of applicants. And I'd like to introduce Brandon.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon Krakowsky. I'm a lecturer at Penn Engineering. I teach the Intro to Software Development course in the MCIT Online program, as well as on campus. Just wanted to excited to talk to everyone. I'm going to talk to you a bit about kind of my experience, my background, my experience going through the MCIT program over 10 years ago, and then tell you some details about the course specifically, and then take some of your questions. So just a little bit of background, kind of where I came from. Oh, sorry, yeah, we'll get down that slide. So I actually started out as a musician. I'm still a musician, but started out more professionally as a musician, a traveling musician for many years. I actually have a degree in radio broadcasting and audio production. That sort of led me into Flash programming, which is something that's not as popular anymore, but kind of that was my introduction to programming. I'll say it was a tool I used when I worked for a web conferencing company to develop a live web conferencing platform for big pharma clients. Then I went back to school to get my master's in computers and information technology at Penn, and I graduated around 2009. My first job after that was actually working as a programmer at the School of Design at Penn. I was hired as a contractor. That was my first real programming job after I felt confident enough after completing the program. Took that job, worked there for 3 years. Then I was actually, I transitioned over to being an application developer, working for Wharton Computing. I worked with faculty and staff to build online applications for different types of student programming. Next slide. Somewhere along the way, I actually started my own company called Bleak LLC. This was a company I actually started doing a lot of freelance work because people asked me to do it and I liked the extra money. That's actually where I got a lot of my experience programming. And then I just sort of slapped a label on it and called myself a company. I worked for myself. I did that for many years. I do it less now, but I did do it for a really long time. I got a lot of experience working on different types of projects as a freelancer. So while I was working during the day as a programmer at the School of Design and at Wharton, I was also by night kind of working on my own projects for different clients. Everything from iPhone apps to other types of online applications for building design research and things like that. Full-time work, I transitioned to a data and analytics position, also at Wharton. I'm currently the research and education director at WCA, or Wharton Customer Analytics. Less programming in this job per se, but what I do is I actually manage research projects with students and faculty at the university, as well as academic researchers from around the world. So we basically partner with companies to make data sets available for data and analytics projects, again, with students and with faculty. And then in 2018, I became a part-time lecturer at Penn Engineering. So now I'm sort of back where I started in the program over 10 years ago, kind of teaching the same core programming skills to other students. A little bit more about me. I play bass. That's me playing bass at a park, I think somewhere in West Philadelphia. So I do still play. I don't tour as much as I used to. I really like my dog. We're very close. There's a picture of me and my dog. She's extremely old at this time. I don't know, we lost track of her age. I think she's 17 years old or something like that. So this picture is a few years old. So what the MCIT program did for me. So what was happening was I worked in industry for about 10 years as a programmer, but I was mostly doing Flash programming, and I was very, very much self-taught. So I had a lot of holes in my knowledge and skills. I didn't realize at the time, but I thought I was doing really well, and I was doing well, but I knew what I knew what I knew really well. So I was a Flash programmer. I could build web conferencing applications, but I had a lot of gaps in other areas. So I really wasn't aware of like basic programming principles or like kind of high level object oriented concepts. And then, and my ability to pick up other programming languages was somewhat limited. I didn't really know where to start. It was always kind of just, I'm going to just start coding and see what happens. And it took me kind of twice as long to get things done. So if I need to figure out how to do something, I would just kind of jump in and hit my head against the wall until I could figure it out. And I learned a lot that way. I had a great job. I worked at a web conferencing company for almost 8 years, building these platforms with live audio and video streaming, back when web conferencing was kind of more novel. But I was essentially stuck in the job. I couldn't really move into another position at the company or another company because I didn't have the academic background, or I didn't have enough experience in other areas of programming. So I went back to school. You can go to the next slide. Sorry. I went back to school, MCIT program. This was 2000, I guess, 6 or 7. What it did for me, and in no particular order, these are the things that it really did for me. It was an amazing experience. So it filled in my knowledge gaps. So both on the academic side and in practice. So it filled in a lot of kind of things that I was already doing. I sort of better understood why I was doing them, why they were working, and then the problems that I was having, I sort of better understood why they were problematic and how I could fix those things and move quicker. It taught me a ton of basic computer science knowledge that I did not have. As a programmer, you can sort of get away with, how does a computer work, right? That type of thing. You don't really need to know that essentially if you're a web application developer or something like that. So it kind of filled in a lot of that background information for me, taught me how to think more analytically and logically, which I already did, but I felt like it improved on that, probably just from the more hours I was spending on these types of projects. And my ability to solve problems was enhanced. Gave me an appreciation for the beauty of code. So now instead of just writing code that got the job done, I was able to kind of more eloquently write code in a prettier way. And I sort of appreciated the fact that I was able to get there faster. Also gave me the leverage to transition to other jobs. That was the big thing. So I was able to, with more of a background, able to go on interviews, talk, speak the language. I knew what I was doing. I knew where I wanted to go. And as I said, kind of right after I graduated, I was able to move into another position at the university. And then also managing other programmers. It's important to be able to again, speak the language when you're managing others who are doing the same types of tasks, even if you're not doing them on a day-to-day basis. And lots of connections. Sorry, I made lots of connections, friends and connections that I still have today over 10 years later. So let me tell you a little bit about the kind of the first course in the online program. It's called Introduction to Software Development. The first half of the course is an introduction to programming using Python. So students are introduced, assuming a student has zero experience, you can kind of hit the ground running on the within the first couple of days. We get you started very quickly. So you're introduced to kind of those core programming concepts that'll help you get started in Python and will continue through Java, which is kind of the second half of the course, and then can be applied to other programming languages. So we cover very basic things at a high level: data structures, conditionals, loops, variables, functions. These are terms you may not be familiar with right now, but you will be familiar with in the first couple of days of this course specifically. We also go through kind of the different industry standard tools that are used for writing and running Python, as well as Java for the second half of the course. Get you coding quickly, meaning day one. So lots of hands-on coding exercises throughout the course. And also we do part of this Python module, or the modules within the course that are Python focused. We go over some kind of basic data science techniques using Python and some machine learning. Next slide. Second half of the course is all Java. So we start with, after going through Python, you're at this point hopefully comfortable programming in the language. We kind of move into something more robust, more object-oriented. That's Java. We start with the basics, kind of like we start with Python. We start with syntax. In this case, we try to compare things back to Python. So, how is what you're doing in Java now, how is this related to what I already know in Python? And then bringing those kind of basic programming concepts to life again continue the thread through Java. We write huge Java programs in our assignments. We test our code using test-driven development. Again, this is an industry standard kind of practice. We introduce concepts like polymorphism, inheritance, abstract classes, interfaces, and advanced data structures. Again, these are not terms you may be comfortable with now, but these are important to learn after kind of going through this course. And at the end of the course, you want to be able to not only use these, but also talk about them, I feel like. So also reading and writing files, connecting to databases, parsing text, all kind of pretty powerful functionality that we learn how to leverage in Java. And then a lot of advanced strategies for debugging our code and things like that. So you're pretty comfortable at the end of the course programming in both Python and Java, and almost doing the same things in both languages. That's sort of how the course is structured. So I know how to do all this in Python. Let me know now. I want to know how to do all the same things in Java, and then some additional things on top of that. So kind of generally speaking, at a high level, like what's the format of the course? It's an online course. There's produced audio and video content. Try to teach the high level concepts. Then we have in-depth coding demonstrations with explanations. So I kind of go through the concepts and then show you going through examples how to code using these concepts in the Python or Java syntax. A lot of programming assignments. That's where the real learning happens in this course. It's okay, here's all the concepts, here's some demonstrations, now go do it. So there's at least 10 to 12 large programming assignments in both Python and Java every 1 to 2 weeks. A lot of some short readings with additional background material. These are not books. These are readings that I put together based on things that you should know as you're learning to program in these languages. A lot of coding tips that help you really get started inside of the different tools that we use for Python and Eclipse. A lot of practice coding exercises. So these are exercises that are not graded per se, but they're easier exercises that really help you get started with these concepts before you get into the bigger assignments. Live and recorded recitations with TAs. That's for review of material or additional coding exercises. And then we have office hours for support throughout the week. That's live. That's with myself and with TAs. Discussion forums. So not only would you expect myself or TAs to be kind of answering your questions and helping you via this discussion forum, but other students would typically, we're kind of helping each other using these different channels. And then there is a midterm. The midterm is a coding assignment in Python, and then a final, which is another coding assignment in Java. So it kind of wraps things up at the midpoint, at the end of Python, and then at the end of Java, at the end of the course. Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Brandon, you could say, I think we could safely say that this course is kind of like accelerated, or at least I think the degree in general, like since we're trying to kind of teach people the basics in a short period of time.
Yeah. The program is accelerated, and I definitely think that this course is accelerated, as it should be. I mean, you know, if you're coming in with zero experience or a little bit of experience, you would expect to kind of progress pretty quickly at the end of this course and at the end of the program. Certainly, you should be able to call yourself a programmer at the end of the program if that's where your interest lies. So yes, I do think it's accelerated, but we kind of help you along the way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, and we'll definitely come back to you. One thing we wanted to touch on briefly was this notion of what to expect in the first 90 days of the program. And my first thought was that it really starts before the first day of class because we have a pretty robust virtual onboarding course that admitted students have access to in the month beforehand. And so that's a place where you can start getting acclimated to the various different platforms that we use, Coursera being one of them, but for example, we also use Slack, we use Zoom, we use a discussion board called Piazza. So not really course content related, but at the program level, getting acclimated. And also getting a chance to start meeting the other students and making some new connections. It's really been very, I'm going to use the word heartwarming because it's true, to see the network of MCIT online students expand so much in the last 2 years. There's really a culture of generosity in terms of sharing, you know, job opportunities and helping each other out. And I think we also now have kind of a significant number of students in sort of hubs around the world. And so, you know, one day when we can meet in person again, that's a possibility of meeting up in person with students that are also in your program. So in the first 90 days, I would say there are a lot of adjustments that students go through. I put acclimating to a lot of change. So again, I mean, if you've never taken an online program before, or even if you have, it's a big adjustment to get used to the cadence and the different platforms. And then as well, you're studying, for most people, you'll be studying a field that you've never studied before that's completely new, and that can be a big change. I always just imagine brains expanding and contracting, and I don't know how people's brains fit still in their heads by the time they graduate because they learn so much. But, you know, also for many of our students, it's a long time since they've been in school. And so just adjusting to being bad at something again, you know, like I think a lot of our students are kind of overachievers, and I know it's so wonderful to feel accomplished at something, and then to suddenly go back to the drawing board. Imagine like when you first learned how to read or something like that, where it can be frustrating. That's a big change. And then also I think with coding in particular, I mean, that's only one of the courses, one of the first core courses, but you know, as you're debugging, that process can be frustrating. But we do have a lot of support mechanisms in place. I have a student affairs team of folks who are always available every week. We have TAs and instructors who have, you know, live events each week. And then we also have, we're just piloting a peer mentoring program where I think this is maybe even better than any of the options I mentioned so far. you know, you can meet with somebody who's gone through the same thing that you've gone through, you know, and just the challenges of balancing schoolwork with real life and with your career. It's really, I think it can be helpful to check in with people who have gone through the same thing, and just that idea of like, I'm not alone going through this program, even though I'm by myself, you know, in my apartment at my house. There's really a big network of support out there for me. So that is our presentation, and we did have a couple of questions. I'll just repeat, if you're joining us by phone, we do not have a mechanism for asking questions right now, but you can always send us an email. Rafia or someone else on my team will respond. It's the email address is online-learning@seas.upenn.edu. And our team is very responsive. We're also recording this video, and this webinar will be posting it later and hanging out a little afterwards to answer more questions through the Q&A tool. But to get started on this portion of the Q&A, we had a few folks who submitted questions in advance. And I don't know, Brandon, if you want to kind of tackle a few of those now,
Sure.
Then we'll move on to the ones that are coming in today.
Sure, yeah. So let's see, first question that was submitted, what is the hardest aspect of these fields? So I'll say that there really isn't anything in particular that's hard or difficult. It kind of depends on where your interest lies. It can be very time consuming to learn these skills, in particular programming. It just takes a lot of time, right? If you're writing code, it's an unpredictable amount of time, like you mentioned, like debugging code. But once you learn these skills, they kind of, you don't really forget them, I feel like, especially with programming. It kind of becomes a part of who you are or the way you think or part of your dialogue. I mean, it's extremely gratifying. So while it's difficult and time consuming to learn this, it is extremely gratifying. So during that first, bringing it back to kind of the first 90 days or even the first 7 days, you know, you might find it a little bit overwhelming, but kind of when you kind of get over that first roadblock, it's extremely gratifying. And you think to yourself, wow, I can really do this. This is something I can actually do, along with your kind of peers who are doing it at the same time. So I don't think there's anything that's difficult in particular. I mean, obviously getting into the field in terms of work or transitioning to other jobs, that has its challenges, but I don't think that the, learning the skills is particularly difficult. It's just you have to give yourself a bit of time and really dedicate the time that it takes to learn the skills. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who wanted to learn to program. It took me hours and hours to do it, but I loved it. And I got better and better at it quickly. And so then it's like playing an instrument, right? You just get better at it and you kind of hit these, kind of get past these roadblocks and you become very pleased with yourself. So let's see, we have another question here. Let's see. How are some ways you counter or alleviate job stress, pressure, and expectations? So I'll say, from my perspective, programming itself can be very meditative. It can actually be very calming because your mind is in it. So like anything, if you're doing a puzzle or playing a game or a video game or whatever it is you're doing or reading, it can be very meditative. So it can actually alleviate stress in other areas of your life potentially. That's happened to me if I've had stress at home or have a lot of kids or that type of stress. Like actually working can actually alleviate that type of stress. Stress related to programming or whatever kind of technology field that you're working in can only really be caused by like job deadlines and things like that. So I feel like that's where the stress lies. And that's just kind of however you deal with job related stress. Personally, I deal with stress, work related stress. You know, I play music, I spend time with my family, which again can cause its own stress, but they sort of balance each other out. So feeling stressed at work, spend time at home, stressed at home, get back into work. And I feel like getting my head inside of these types of tasks can actually be extremely peaceful. That's a word I could use to describe it. Let's see. Another question here. Let's see. Is the program's directive to prepare students to advance their current career into a more technical programming related role, or to prepare students to make a career change and pivot into tech. So working for big firms. So I think the answer is yes and yes. So if you have no experience, this program will help you, and you'll feel this way after the first couple courses. This program will help you get into a new field if you want to. If you want to get into technology from some other field, you can do that through this program. You can come in with no experience. I had a little experience when I started, but there were a lot of students that had no experience, and we ended up in the same place. And I'll say if you do have some experience, or you want to kind of pivot or advance your role, this can help you do that as well. So again, if you want to, maybe you don't want to actually program, maybe you want to manage programmers or manage people that are doing these types of things. Well, this program can help you do that too, because again, it helps you learn how to talk about these things and at least understand how they work. So I think it's kind of it's an amazing program because it's sort of multifaceted in that way. You can kind of come at it from different angles and come out of the other end, kind of like going into either a new role or advancing in your current role or managing others that are kind of doing these types of things.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to extend to that, to mention some more aspects of diversity that are in our program. I think one of the things that's so exciting about this is that, because you do not need to have a CS background, we have students with all different kinds of backgrounds. And so that brings a real richness to the community. So, for example, there could be somebody who has a philosophy background or, a healthcare background. There are some folks with engineering backgrounds not in CS, perhaps like business or finance or linguistics even. So that's been really fun to see, at least from our perspective. I think the students who are in the program really appreciate that as well. I also feel that those unique backgrounds lend a really great texture to our alumni. So our MCIT Online program is so new that it doesn't have graduates yet. We'll have a few this year as our first students graduating. So our data is mostly with regard to the on-campus students. But I would think, somebody who hires Brandon, he also has this musical background. So he has, he's accessing both sides of his brain when it comes to problem solving. And I think that's something that employers really appreciate. We also, we're happy about diversity in every measure. And that's one of the values of the program. Have a disaster.
Oh no.
Am I upside down still? Okay. We're just keeping it real here in the pandemic, everybody. So let's move on to some of the questions that are coming in now. So one of them that I saw talks about the early deadline and whether there's any advantage to applying to the early deadline. So I would say yes, there is a slight advantage. We can't necessarily give you like a percentage, but just by the nature of the way decisions are made, there is a slight advantage there. So if you're sort of debating whether to apply early or not, feel free to talk to us about it. We can't necessarily give you all of the answers, but we're happy to weigh in. We have weekly Zoom office hours with admissions counselors. If someone can throw the link in the chat tool there, you can see them. And it would literally be a one-on-one 15 minutes with myself, with Rafia, with Aaron on our team. And we're happy to weigh in. Again, ultimately it's a personal decision. I definitely would not despair if you are applying for a regular decision by any means. Like I said, the advantage is slight.
There's just one thing I wanted to add to that, Olivia. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think one of the things applicants sometimes ask is they want to make sure that they get things in by the early deadline. But I think it's definitely very important to make sure that you submit an application that's a true indication of yourself. we do a holistic review of applications. So make sure that you're not rushed so that your personal statement can be, can really reflect who you are and some of your goals and some of your strengths, in addition to making sure that the people writing your recommendations have enough time to really spend on writing something about you that'll convey who you are and what you could add to the program and to the community. So it's nice that we have the early deadline, but we also have that time in between where if you decide, oh, I think I want to take the GRE or the GMAT to add to, your ability to see my quantitative abilities, you do have that extra time before you get to the regular decision deadline. People often ask as well, if you apply in the early application cycle and aren't admitted, are you automatically rolled over to the regular cycle? In that case, you wouldn't be, and you would have to just reapply for the next semester. But when you're submitting your application, that's why I think it's really important to look at everything in context and try to really think, like, does this convey who I am and my interest and my passion for this program before you hit the submit button?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I would add, conversely, that if you are really committed to getting your application in by the early deadline, we don't consider it to be complete unless we've received at least 2 letters of recommendation. So just to know that when you press the submit button, that doesn't necessarily mean that your application is complete until we get those 2 letters. So one potential thing you could do is solicit 3 letters, just in case somebody, has a last minute conflict and isn't able to submit a letter for you. Now, worst case, which is not really a terrible situation, if we only had 1 letter, your application would roll over to the regular deadline, and we would review it at that time once we receive the 2nd letter. So that would be fine too. But I always like to clarify about the difference between submitting versus being complete.
Right.
Okay, so another question I'm seeing is about data science career options. I don't know if you can speak to that, Brandon. I have sort of a short answer.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll say that it's kind of a big question. So data science can mean many things, right? It continues to be a kind of hot area right now. I kind of break data science down into 3 areas. That's data, or 3 types of jobs, I should say. Data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists. And I would say that all 3 of those are possible coming out of the program. It just depends on what you focus on when you're in the program. So data analyst is just typically I'm doing data analysis. Data engineering is I'm managing data pipelines, things like that. And data science is typically like predictive analytics, something like that on that level. All 3 are doable. I think you'd want to focus on taking the relevant electives in the program that focuses on data analysis, data science, big data analytics, things like that. My course specifically covers an intro to data science, but I wouldn't say that at the end of that part of the course, you'd be ready to jump into a data science role. It just wouldn't happen. I try to fit it in within this kind of larger framework of learning Python, learning Java. So it's relevant, but I would say that you would need some additional elective courses to kind of fill that out. And I think, again, all these different types of jobs are doable coming out of the program. And also, it's not just the program. Also, if you're going to get into these fields, you want to sort of get involved in these typically free online data exercises or competitions that are made available through platforms like Kaggle and data.world and things like that. So because data science moves it's hot right now, but it also moves very quickly. So it's important to get as much experience as possible.
Yeah, and just to build on that, it kind of it relates to another question we often get, which is what is the difference between this program, which is a Master of Computer and Information Technology, versus a Master of Science in Computer Science? So I would say on the outcomes and skills that students have when they graduate are very, very similar. So if you're wondering to yourself, could I be a data scientist? Think to yourself, if I had an MS in computer science, would I be able to do data science? And I think the answer would be yes. So just to give you a sense of what the difference is, again, if you were to take kind of a traditional Master of Science degree program, you would have background in that area, right? So you would start with maybe 4 core courses, and then you would take, let's say, 6 electives in various different areas. Whereas in MCIT, you take 6 core courses, and in that span of time, as we were mentioning, it's, you could say, accelerated in the sense that trying to quickly help you learn the truly fundamental foundations of computer science. And then there's 4 electives at the end with which you can sort of learn more niche topics. So I hope that helps. The short answer, too long didn't read, is that the degrees are extremely similar, and I think the career outcomes are very similar as well. Okay, so let's see what other questions that we have. Let's talk a little bit about, this is kind of implied in one of the questions, but the career services that are available. I know that that's something that is very important to a lot of people. And well, online students don't really have access to the traditional on-campus resources. We have other resources that are more customized to our students. Like I said, most of the people on campus are undergraduates, and our students are, you know, mid-career working professionals who are at different places in their career, right? They could be doing a career change, they could do a career advancement, could be doing a career start, but that's a little bit less common. And so we're organizing, like, for example, a virtual career fair just for MCIT Online students. We have an associate director of professional development and networking who is available to meet with students one-on-one once they reach a certain milestone in the program. She puts out weekly newsletters. She is constantly making new webinars about how to improve your resume or do a technical interview or all of the things. She helped us all give our LinkedIn profiles a makeover in our office. She's an extremely helpful resource. And again, you know, when you're an MCIT Online student, you're a Penn student. You know, you're a bona fide student at the University of Pennsylvania. So you have access to the entire Penn network, whether that's through the alumni tool called QuakerNet, or you know, there are LinkedIn groups devoted to these categories. And there's a lot of networking that can be done just within the program itself. So I think that soon enough, we'll be able to have some career outcome data that's specific to the online program, but we've been very happy with the quality of students that we've been able to recruit, and perhaps you will be one of our future students as well. Okay. All right, what other questions do we like here? So another question that came in is what constitutes as overqualified? And the definition we like to give for this is if a person could waive or test out of more than 2 of the core courses, that would be considered overqualified. Yeah, because if you think about it, again, this program is really designed for people who do not have a CS background. And so we want people to be a little bit on a level playing field when they come in, so that they can yeah, have access to the same types of resources and the same starting point. So it can't be exactly the same. I mean, it's funny, it's almost hard to avoid coding, I think, these days. Believe it or not, they're starting to teach fundamentals in kindergarten. That's happening with my child. And so but obviously CS is not just about coding, but that's one aspect of it. So yeah, if you are really excited about applying to the program, but you're worried that you might be overqualified, we always say to address this directly in your personal statement. You could even say, it might appear that I'm overqualified because I do such and such for a job, but I actually feel I'm not overqualified because I never had a formal education in this, or, you know, kind of like Brandon's story, or maybe I had it a long time ago and I need a refresher. So there could be different reasons. And I think if you're just very direct about it, that helps the admissions committee to parse the different applications. Okay. There's a question about the technical requirements for the program, and we have a section on our website that addresses that. So either we can send that to you now or follow up with that later.
I will say that the website in the frequently asked questions tool is a great way to get answers to a lot of commonly asked questions. There's actually a search bar, so you can type in the phrase that you're looking for specifically that might address some of the questions that you might have.
Yeah, and you can see here on the screen I put our email address. If you want a little bit more of a personalized response, we have the third bullet point is our mailing list for if you want to know about other webinars that we might having in the future. Like, for example, if you're not able to apply right now, but maybe you will by October, well, we will definitely have another webinar before then. We like to have one per deadline. And we mix it up, so it'll be another guest speaker probably of some kind with different perspectives to share. And then another thing we like to tell folks about is that Penn Engineering has a course on Coursera called Computational Thinking for Problem Solving. And I've started this course. It's a 4-week course. I think it's $49. And it really takes you through the basics of what it means to think like a computer. You know, humans have a certain way of thinking, computers have a certain way of processing, and we don't always talk to each other in a compatible way. And so it really takes you through like the basics of how to start putting your own thoughts into a logical flow. It will not make you overqualified if you take the course, but it could be helpful for you if, for example, you think you might be interested, but you're not sure. Maybe you've never coded before. You could try this course and see what you think. You know, see if, like Brandon said, it becomes fun for you, or if you enjoy the challenge, or maybe it even comes naturally. And then definitely mention it if you finish the course and you apply. That's helpful for us to know that you have some online learning experience. Not only that, it's on Coursera, which is the same platform that we use for our degree program. So then you'll be familiar, you know, somewhat familiar with that as well. And it has puppies in it. So what else can I say? It's a really fun course. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so another question that came in, and we're getting close to time here, but I think we have time for a few more, is does the MCIT program prepare someone for a PhD program? And I think what we typically say is that PhD programs are very focused on research, and research is not a component of MCIT Online. So if you wanted to pursue a PhD, you would need to supplement the degree experience with some research experience. Kind of like Brandon was saying about how if you want to go into data science, you would supplement. Yeah, do you have any follow-up to that, Brandon? I know there's a few folks on campus who eventually went on to PhD, but it's relatively rare.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily prepares you for that, but yeah, I've had students that have gone on to that and, you know, haven't had a problem. I think I would say that this program, and when I came into the program, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to literally just find another job doing the same thing, but to be better at it. I was not interested in research or even, you know, continuing my career in academia beyond that. I wanted to just do this in 2 or so years and then be done with it. And I wanted to build up the skill set. So I would say that it was more focused on the job market and advancing in the job market than it is an academic type track. So sort of agreeing with you.
All right, let's see, Rafia, do you want to take number 10?
Sure. Number 10. What kind of degree is it? And would the degree say online? So the degree that you receive is the same as our on-campus students. So it's the same degree. It doesn't mention that it's online. You get the same quality instruction. You have the same professors, and it's pretty much been developed. The MCIT Online was developed from the MCIT on-campus program. So it would be the same exact degree as the one that we have for our on-campus students.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to say it's the same diploma, but the experience is not exactly the same, as you can imagine. You know, the content that you're learning is the same, but the experience of, you know, being in a virtual environment is different. And if you're on campus, a lot of those folks are, you know, just out of undergrad, whereas, again, our students are more often mid-career working professionals, which just lends itself to a different feel. So there are some differences in those ways, but certainly anyone who graduates will have the same skill set, will be, you know, again, both University of Pennsylvania students with ID cards, and they become University of Pennsylvania alumni. So you can get all of the swag and the keychain and bumper stickers, and yeah.
Eventually come visit campus one day.
Yes, yes, yes. We would love that. We love to meet students in person.
And I wanted to add, I think one of the benefits of MCIT Online is the community of students is from all around the world. So with the on-campus program, it's a little bit more limited to people that can kind of pick up and move to Philadelphia. MCIT Online, there are students from zip codes all around the world. So you have a cohort that is extremely large, that you might meet somebody who's developing a project or in a field that you might not have ever thought about before. So I think the richness of the community that Olivia mentioned before is enhanced by the program being online.
Yeah. Hey, we are at the 1 hour mark, so I think we are going to say goodbye. We, the speakers. Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us.
Thank you.
And you know, some of you will probably see him in January of next year. Mm-hmm. And like I said, if you have additional questions, you'll probably be chatting with Rafia or someone else on our admissions team. So go ahead and hang out a little bit longer if you would like for answering questions. And thank you for joining us today.